Hare Krishna. Please accept my humble obeisances and welcome to the third session of we're discussing chapter 8 of second canto, questions by Parikshit Maharaj. So today is the third and the last session. Yeah. So let's please sing Jarada Madhav and then we will start the discussion. Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vraja Janandana Vraja Janandana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vraja Janandana Yashodanandana Vraja Janandana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Chari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare Jaya Radha Gopinath Radha Gopinath Shri Radha Radha Gopinath Radha Gopinath Shri Radha Radha Damodar Radha Damodar Shri Radha Radha Damodar Radha Damodar Shri Radha Radha Pathati Radha Pathati Shri Radha Pathati Radha Pathati Shri Radha Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Gurudev Gurudev Jaya Jaya Gurudev Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Hari Jai Shri Hari Naam Sankirtan ki jai Srila Prabhu jai Srila Gurudev ki jai Jai Go Premanande Hari Hari Bol Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Vim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udiraye Nashta Prayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavat Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नन्दनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः. Hare Krishna. So we've been discussing from chapter 8 of second canto, questions asked by Parikshit Maharaj. Today is the third session, as I said. In yesterday's session, we went through certain number of questions. When Parikshit Maharaj asked from Shukdev ji about the various kalpas, he asked about the difference of various ages, various yugas. Then he also asked the dharma, the definition of dharma in various yugas. We specifically spoke about, how in Dwapar Yuga, Treta Yuga, we looked at one example. In Dwapar Yuga, when Yudhishthira Maharaj was invited for gambling, he accepted that. And we discussed that, as it is said that the Kshatriya dharma in Dwapar was, if you are invited for a fight, then you have to accept it. And we spoke about how Bhishma Pitama, who fought with his own guru, Parshuramji. And Yudhishthira Maharaj, some acharyas have even said that Yudhishthira Maharaj was Dharmaraj in Dwapar, but he might not be Dharmaraj in Treta Yuga. So every yuga different. How Lord Ram was asked to fight by Parshuramji, but Lord Ram kept submitting. He actually even went to the extent, he told Parshuramji that Dvij वंश की असप्रभुताई अभय हो ही जो तुम्हें देगा. He said that, my dear sir, that the Brahman kul or the Brahmanas are so potent. If they try to summon off, they actually become abhay. Understand? If a Brahmana is trying to scare you and you get scared, then you are actually becoming fearless. So this is how Lord Ram responded to Parshuram's threats or invitation to fight. And when Parshuramji heard that, then he realized that he is not an ordinary Kshatriya. See? So various yugas, different dharmas. So Parikshit Maharaj inquired about that. Then we also spoke about in verse number 20, Yogeshwara Aishwarya Gati. How some of the yogis, the mystics, they are trying to get some powers. And what is their gati? What happens to them? Very important. Sometimes we just get so much after this man pratishtha, as it is said, man la pratishtha, shukrera vista. Because what do you achieve? What is the objective of getting these mystic powers? How is it going to help you in your devotional service or someone else's devotional service unless you have a purpose? Yeah. So that has to be the mapdanda, the measuring scale. What is the purpose? Durvasa Rishi, he had so many mystic powers, but he couldn't do anything. He finally had to go to the Lord, and their Lordship then told him, Aham Bhakta Paradhino, he aswatantra dvija iva, he aswatantra dvija iva, sadhu bhir grasta hridayo, bhakter bhakta janapriya. He told Durvasa Rishi, he had so many mystic powers, that I am actually adhin, as in I work under, I am a subordinate to my peace. I am not independent like that. He a swatantra dvija, oh Dvij, oh Brahman, I am not independent like that. I am controlled by my devotees. Because in their heart of heart, sadhu bhir grasta hridayo, grasta as in within their heart is absorbed within me. And what to speak of just those sadhus whose heart is absorbed in me, even the devotee of my devotee, bhakter bhakta janapri. So what to speak of that, Durvasa Rishi? And all the mystic powers were of no use. When they were trying to disrobe Draupadi Maharani, Mother Draupadi, did Draupadi had any mystic power? But they couldn't. One poet even went to the extent of saying that Nari vich sari hai ke sari vich Nari. Whether there is a woman in the sari or whether there is sari in the woman, because the cloth just kept coming out. So the mystic power for a devotee is their God. Like for a child, the parents do everything. The child says, yes, I can do it or I will get it, because they have a confidence, my father or my parents will arrange it. Similarly, devotees, they are fully. So we discuss about that question. So something to contemplate, if we try to get those so-called mystic powers or positions, etc., etc. So that's of no use. Yeah. And then we come to today's questions. So we have few more questions left. We'll try to discuss those questions and see if we can have some realization from that. Let's do Mangalacharan and then we will discuss. ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरु श्रीपदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगना रघुनाथान्वितान्तं सजीवं सावधूतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगना ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधो जगत्पते गोपेशा गोपिका कांता श्री राधा कांता नमस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी श्री राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधारा श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। भूते महद्भिर्यैमा पुरो विभो निर्मायशेते यदमूष पुरुषा। पुंते गुणान् षोडश षोडशात्मकम् सोऽलङ्कसृष्ट भगवान् वचांसि मे। श्रीकृष्ण शरणं शरणागतं कथा अमृतं सतत पीबतम्। भक्ति वेदांत मार्ग पंथनम सर्वलोक ऋषि देव जन्म प्रसन्नम, सर्वलोक ऋषि देव जन्म प्रसन्नम। हरे कृष्ण। So today we will start from shlok number 2821. Parikshit Maharaj is continuing with his questions. So after asking about the Yogeshwar and their gati and the significance of Ved, Upved, Dharmanam, Itihasa, Puranayo in shlok number 20. So he is asking Samplava Sarvabhutana Vikrama Pratisankrama Ishtapurtasya Kamyana Trivargasya Chayo Vidhi. My dear sir, I want to know Samplava. So Samplava is it also means Samplava is Samyak Rupena Pralay, complete devastation. It also means perfect, perfectly performing our devotional service. Samplava is if you are properly, perfectly performing your devotional services. Sarva Bhutana Vikrama Pratisankrama. So all the living entities, how they are created, how they are maintained, and how they are annihilated. Or you can say the creation, their utpatti, then maintenance, and the annihilation. And other, how, in the purport as it is described, spoken by Srila Prabhupada, the perfect way of performing your devotional service, the samplava. How do you do that? And the advantages and disadvantages of performing the devotional service. That is also Parikshit Maharaj wants to know from Shukdev ji. Then he is also asking Ishta Purtasya Kamyana. Yeah? Ishta Purtasya. So Ishta is we perform the yagna, we perform these various sacrifices. Yeah. Ishta is also, like we say, Isht Dev, to your liking, to fulfill your desires. You're performing these yagna ceremonies. Yeah. You perform sacrifices. Yeah. Purtasya is also like you're doing those charitable activities, creating the road, setting up the hospital, digging the well so that people can drink water, building the shelter homes where homeless people can come and stay. So performing all these, sacrifice, yeah, to fulfill some of your desires, kamyana, yeah. And then he's also asking Tri Vargasya Chayogidi. Tri Vargasya is, so these desires or the so-called activities, actually the activities, they are in three categories: dharma, earth, and kam. Yeah? And the result is moksha. But that is separate. But three vargas is these three: the religious, related to religious activities, then material gains, and then desire and the enjoyment, yeah? Which is kam. Yeah? What are the different vidhis, different processes of performing these activities? Yeah. And then in the next verse, he is asking that Yo va anushayinam sarga pashandasya sambhava. Yeah? Yo va anushayinam sambhava. After the annihilation, what happens is all the living entities, they get merged into the body of Narayana. As I was saying, Narayana, as in everyone goes inside him. You can read second canto, 5th chapter. There, Brahmaji is speaking to Naraji, and he mentions in there how after full pralaya, all the living entities, they get submerged into the body of the Narayana. Narayana is in, Nar is in water, Ayana is who's in lying in the water. So they all merge into that. So now the question Parikshit Maharaj is asking is, Yo va anushayinam sarga. Those who have merged into the body of the Supreme, how do they come out again? Okay? This is something we should also question and ask. And then he also asks the next question, Pashandasya cha sambhav. Pashanda is infidels. How do they come out? Now, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, primarily, there are two types of living entities. One who are ever liberated, and other is who are ever conditioned. Okay? Now, from the ever conditioned, there are again two categories. Okay? There are faithfuls and there are fidels, Pashand. Okay? And then from the faithful, there are further two categories. They are devotees and they are mental speculators. Okay? Now the mental speculators, they desire to become one with the Lord, to merge with Him. Okay? So they merge again. And the devotees, they always want to serve the Lord. They are always engaged in the devotional service. So they continue with their devotional service, and their purification process goes from one life to another life, from one yuga to another yuga, from one kalpa to another kalpa. Yeah. And that's what Lord Krishna is saying in Bhagavad Gita. Bahunam janmanam ante jnanvanamam prapadyate. So we have taken so many births. So many acharyas have said that we have been Indra, we have been Brahma. We have been in all these positions, right? But then, with our actions and karmas, yasmin karma samavaya, as in 14 shloka, 2.8.14, Parikshit Maharaj. Yeah. So the question here is, Yovanushayinam sarga is in, they appear. Pashandasya cha sambhav. How the infidels come out? Well, look, someone might say that if they are coming out of the same body, or if they are merging into the same body and they are coming out, so then why there is a difference? So it is that difference that at the time of yam yam vapi smaran bhava, it not just applies to one lifetime of leaving the body, it goes to the eternity, you can say. Yeah. So you keep going through these cycles, and when the pralaya comes, at that time, whatever your state is, then when you come back again, that same journey continues. So there is no break. On the positive side, swa alpam api dharmasya trayate mahato bhayati. If you perform a devotional service, yes, it continues from the same point. Yeah. So that's the question Parikshit Maharaj has asked. Now in the next line he is asking, Atmano bandha mokshaucha devasthanam swarupata. How the living entities are bandh, get entangled or conditioned, right? And mokshaucha, how they get liberated. So the first stage is they get liberated, as in they become without any desire, nisangam. Yeah? That was the what Parikshit Maharaj told when he is asking the question in the third shloka 283. He is saying that kathayasya mahabhaga yatha aham akhil atmani krishne niveshya nisangam manah tyakshaye kaleva. So that I can nivesh, I can invest my mind into Krishna, who is Akhil Atmani. And I invest that mind, and that mind becomes Nihisangam, without any attachment. And if I'm hearing the Katha, in the next verse he says that through the ears, Lord Krishna enters into through the ears, goes into the heart, and he sits on the Hridaya Kamal of the hearer. Yeah? So in that state, Parikshit Maharaj wants to leave the body, Tyakshaya Kaleva. So that's what he's asking, that question, that Atmano Bandha Mokshaucha, how they get liberated, and then Vyavsthanam Swarupata. Swarupata. You know how Sanatana Goswami, when asked that question from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Ke ami? Who am I? Yeah. And then Mahaprabhu told him, Jivara Swarup, Krishnera Nityadas. So that's what Swarup means. Vyavsthanam Swarupata. What is the Swarup? What is the real identity of a Jiva? So how that Jiva gets situated into that Swarup. It is said that Lord Ram told once that I don't give anything to my devotees. Very, puzzling. You don't give. Then Hanumanji said, then my dear Lord, what do you do? He said, I don't give them anything, but I give them or I help them so that they get situated in their own Swarup. When Bhishma Pitamaha is glorifying Lord Krishna, Bhishma Pitamaha says that he's visualizing when he's lying on the bed of arrows. He's visualizing, and when he's glorifying the Lord. So he's saying that Vijayarath Kutumba At Totre Dhritahaya Rashmini Yat Shriya Ikshaniye Bhagavati Ratirastu Me Mursho Yamiha Nirikshya Hata Gata Swarup. So he's saying that Bhagavati, Me Mursho, that Bhagavati Rati, into that Lord, may I have my Rati, may I have my attraction, may I have the love, may I be fully engaged, Mumursho, when I'm about to leave my body. Yamihe Nirikshya, by seeing him at the battlefield, Yamiha Nirikshya Hatagata Swarupam. Yam Ihe Nirikshya, just by seeing him, Hata, they died, but Gata Swarupam, they got situated in their real identity, in their real Swarup, which is Jivara Swarup, Krishnera Nityadas. So that's what Parikshit Maharaj is inquiring. Vyavsthanam, so the Atmano Bandha Mokshaucha, the living entities, they get liberated from these bandhan, and Vyavsthanam Swarupta, how they get situated in their Swarup. My dear Lord, I want to know from that. So that's that question. Then he goes to the next question. And the next question Parikshit Maharaj is asking, Yathatma Tantaro Bhagavan Vikridayate Atma Mayaya. Yat Atma Tantro Bhagavan. That Bhagavan, this is actually last question in the series of questions, verse number 23. So he's saying, Yat Atma Tantro. Atma Tantra is, okay, so there are three words: Atma Tantra, Swatantra, and Partantra. So Atma Tantra is you are driven by your own self. Swatantra is also saying Swatantra, Swachalit. You are driven by your own wills or desires. And Paratantra is you are dependent on someone else. Tantra also means an instrument. Paratantra is you become someone else's instrument. Someone else is driving you. So Parikshit Maharaj is asking that Yathatma Tantro Bhagavan, that Supreme Personality of Godhead who is Atma Tantra, who is self-dependent, Atma Maya, Vikridayati Atma Maya, who plays by his Maya. by his internal potency. Yeah. And then visrajye va yatha maya. Yeah. And then visrajye, then he also leaves that energy. He detaches himself from that energy. And then what did he do? Maya, and then udasate. Yeah, sakshi vad vibhu. Then he becomes udasate. There is a word called udas. There is also a word called udasin. That actually means that you are not impacted. You are not impacted by whatever the situation is. So udasate sakshi. Then he becomes a witness. That vibhu, he's using the word vibhu. That vibhu. So let's just understand the question. So the question is that he's asking is that Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is vibhu, who is Atma Tantra, how he plays with his internal potency, and then he also leaves that from that Maya, yeah, and then he becomes a Sakshi. Now in the purport, Prabhupada gives example how Lord Krishna, when he wanted to show the earth, show the whole universe into his mouth, so he showed that to Mother Yashoda. So that's his pastime. He plays. Yeah. Then Prabhupada also mentions that how the whole Yaduvansh was destroyed. Their lordship was with them, and then he created a situation. In the 11th canto, you can read that. Yeah. How the situation is created, and all those Yadavas, they fought with each other, and then they killed each other. When their lordship was leaving Hastinapur to go back to Dwarka, after the Mahabharata was completed and he stayed for a few months, Kunti Maharani had offered her prayers, Bhishma Pitama had also left his body. Then their lordship, as the chariot was leaving from the street, they say all the mothers, all the residents, well actually the reason I mentioned mother is most of the men had died. In the Mahabharata, whoever participated in the war, all the male family members, most of them had died. Very few left. So all of those matas, those mothers, they got on the roof of the houses. And as Lord's chariot was going through the streets, they were throwing flowers, flower petals. And then they were conversing, they were telling each other, Sava ayam sa kyanugit sadkatho Vedeshu guhyeshu cha guhyavadivi Ya ek isha jagadatma leelaya Srajati avatiyati natatra sajjate. See, even though they became widows, they lost their sons, they lost their brothers, they lost their father. They were still on the roof and they were glorifying that Lord. And what they were telling each other is, Sarva ayam sakyanugit sadkato. Oh my friend, it is that Supreme Personality of Godhead whose glories are sung, sadkatho, anugit, whose glories are sung, whose kathas are sung nicely. In Vedas, Vedeshu, Guhyeshu, cha Guhyavadivi, who are secretly captured in the Vedas and who is secretly understood by the devotees, by the pure devotees. Guhyavadivi, Guhya word is used secretly. He is that Lord. Yeah. Ya ek ish, he is the only controller. Ya ek ish, he is the only controller. Who? Jagat Atma Leelaya. Atma Leela, to perform his Leelas. Jagat, he creates this Jagat. And then Srajati, Avati, Atti. Srajati as in creates, avati as in maintains, and srajati, avati as in, and ati as in annihilates. Na tatra sajjate, without any attachment. That's what Parikshit Maharaj is asking. Yeah? Udasate sakshi vad vibhu. How he becomes a sakshi? He plays vikridiyate atmamaya. And then as a sakshi, he also detaches himself. Srila Prabhupada says that he plays with his internal energy and then he hands over to the external energy and then he is completely detached. How does that happen, my dear Lord? I want to know that. So like this he asks, that ends the questions. Number of questions he asks. Now Parikshit Maharaj concludes his questions. So then he says, Sarvam etad. Yeah? Sarvam etad cha. Yeah? Sarvam etad cha Bhagavan. Yeah? Prichato. Prichato me anuपूर्व से. Yeah? Sarvam etad cha. Very important. So he says Sarvam etad, all of these questions. And he has used the word cha. Cha means all the questions that I have asked plus all the questions that I did not ask. Sarvam etad cha. He adds the word cha as in all. Yeah? Bhagavan. Yeah? My dear Lord, the Shukdev ji is addressing as the most learned person. My dear Lord, the most learned person, whatever I have asked, Anu Purveshu, from the very beginning, Prichato, I want to know, I want to hear from you. Yeah? And then he also says that Arhato, yeah? That Tattvato Arhasi, Udahartam, Tattvato. So there he is saying, I want to know the Tat. Yeah? Uda Arhasi Udahartam. Please tell me. Prapannaya Mahamuni. O Mahamuni, Bhagavan, O my dear Lord, he is addressing Shukdev ji. Whatever I have asked, whatever I have asked from the beginning, whatever I have not asked, yeah, all of that, please tell me tattvavat, yeah, in full detail, because I am Prapannaya Mahamuni. I am surrendered to you. Please tell. Yeah? Prabhupada says that a devotee of the Lord, they might not be able to ask all the questions, but a spiritual master will, help. But this is the mood you ask. When Sanatan Goswami meets Mahaprabhu, he asks this question. He says, "Sadhan sadhya tattva puchite na jani. Kripa kari sab tattva kahata apani." Yeah. He says, "Sadhan sadhya sadhan tattva." Sadhya is the goal. What we're trying to achieve. What is the sadhya? So there is sadhya, which is Krishna, and sadhana is how do I reach? How do I get to Shri Krishna? So he is saying sadhan sadhya tattva puchite na jani. I don't even know how to ask, my dear Lord. See, puchite, I don't know. Kripa kari, please be merciful to me. Kripa kari sab tattva, all the tattva. Because he just asked, Kya? Why am I suffering for the threefold miseries? Yeah? Yeah? Kene amaya jare trayatap. Yeah? And without knowing this, ke mane hitahai. Yeah? Without knowing this, ke mane hitahai. How can be my hit? How is my hit possible? So that's why he's saying in the next line he says that sadhya sadhana tattva puchite na jani kripa kari sab tattva kahate apani. Please consider me as yours, Prapannaya, as a surrendered, yeah, and please tell me all the tat, considering me as your eternal servant. Yeah. So that's how Sanatana goes. So similar move here, Parikshit Maharaj is saying to, sorry, I'm looking at the time, it's 10 past 8. So Parikshit Maharaj is asking that Prapannaya Mahamune, whatever I have asked, please answer that, and whatever I have not asked, please answer that, and please tell me tattva. Yeah, in that form. And then in the next verse, he again justifies, he again put forward, continues with his request. So he says, Pramanam yatra bhavan. Yeah? As a pramana, yeah? My dear Lord, you are. Pramanam yatra bhavan, yeah? Parmeshti yathatma bhu. Pramanam yatra hi bhavan parmeshti yathatma bhu. You are the praman because you have received this knowledge from the disciplic succession. Yathatma bhu. You know, Atma bhu is Brahmaji. So you have directly heard from the source. Sripad Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in one of the previous shlokas in his Tika, he, you know, when speaking of the parampara, he says Narayano Adyo Narayanena Brahmana Proktam. Adyo Narayanena Brahmane Proktam Brahmana Naradaya Naradena Vyasaya Vyasen Mayam Cha Tad Aham Prashna Pariharattvena Pravakshyami. So Shukdev Goswami, before he starts speaking, answering his questions, so Shukdev Goswami is telling that, or tippani from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur on this conversation. He's saying, Adyo Narayana Brahmane Proktam. In the beginning, it was spoken by Narayan to Brahma. Yeah? Brahmana Naradaya. Brahma spoke to Naradji. Naradena Vyasaya. Naradji spoke to Vyasi. Vyasena Mahyam. Shukdev is saying Vyasi spoke to me. Tadaham. That same. See, the parampara. That same. Tvat prashna. To your question. Pariharattvena. So the parihar word is translated as I'm delivering the same. I'm going to pass on the same knowledge to you. Yeah? So there is no mix up as it is. Pravakshyami. I'm going to speak that to you. Yeah? So that's why Parikshit Maharaj is addressing Shukdevji. Yeah? Pramanam yatra hi bhavan. You are the praman. Parmeshti atmabhu. Yathatmabhu. Yeah? And then he says, apare. Apare cha. That the others, yeah? That the others, they speak purvajai kritam. What they have heard from the other, other lineage. For example, as I mentioned yesterday, and Prabhupada also mentions in the purport, there are other contemporary rishis, even before Vyasdevji. Even before Vyasdevji wrote Srimad Bhagavatam, there have been many great rishis. Prabhupada has quoted in the purport Gautam Rishi. There is a Gautami, scripture. There is Jaimini Rishi. There is Ashtavakra. There is Patanjali. There is Kanad. Yeah. So Ashtavakra, Jaimini, Patanjali, Gautam, Kanad, Bhagwan Kapil. Even Bhagwan Kapil, Sankhya Shastra that we study. So even the Kanad Rishi, he is called the father of atomic physics. So what the scientists are trying to study today, it is said that they should actually go and study Kanad Rishi's books. But Prabhupada is saying they had written this they had written those scriptures based on their own realization. There is no connection with Narayan. There is no connection that they directly received that from Narayan. But in this case, it has directly come from Narayan. It has directly come from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Tene Brahma Hridaya Adi Kavyo. It was first spoken by their Lordship to Brahmaji, then Brahmaji to Naradji, then Naradji to Vyasji, then Vyasdev to Shukdevji. Even though there are rishis who had written some scripture before Vyasdevji, Prabhupada is saying there is, we don't criticize anyone, but speaking of the potency, speaking of the authenticity, yeah, to coming from disciplic succession, this is it. So that's what Parikshit Maharaj is telling Shukdevji. Yeah. Yeah. Anne cha apare cha anutishtitam purvesham purvajai kritam. They speak what is spoken by their purvaj. So, for example, now Jaimini Rishi would have his own disciples as well, and they will just propagate that same thing in that lineage. But he is saying, my dear sir, you are the Praman, you are the source. So I want to hear from you. Yeah, how Lord Krishna says, that so he is asking for that gyan, he is asking for that knowledge, not a materialistic knowledge. It is not mental speculation. This is divya gyan. Yeah. So yeah. So that's that. Then going to the next slok. In the next slok, then they were thinking that maybe, as I said, in the third verse, Parikshit Maharaj is saying, Kathya Sava, continue speaking. Yeah. But now, because Parikshit Maharaj is sitting there, so it's, he may be hungry or anything. So, but here he reassures Shukdevji in the next slok. After asking these questions, he tells Shukdevji that Name Asva Parayant. Yeah? Brahman An Shanadmi. He's saying, my dear Lord, I won't die. Parayanti. Yeah? Name Aswa. So I won't leave this body. Brahman An Shanadi. I will not leave this body due to hunger. Annashan. Annashan is normally when somebody is sitting on a hunger strike. It is said that they are sitting on anshan. So he's saying, my dear sir, I won't leave this body due to hunger. Don't worry about that. Just continue speaking. Because why will I not leave this body due to hunger? It is also said that he is indirectly saying, if at all I will only die due to the curse of the Brahmana, I am assured. So I'm not going to leave this body due to hunger. I will only die when the Brahmana's curse will work. And also he says in the next line, because I am pibato achut piyusham. Because I am drinking the nectar. Yeah? Pibato achut piyusham tad vakyam avbodh vinisritam. Yeah? Vakyam ambudhi vinisritam. Yeah? He's saying, because my dear sir, I am actually drinking the nectar which is flowing from your vakya, from the ocean of your speech. Vinisritam, which is downward flowing. As the rivers flow from uphill, they flow downwards. So he is saying, my dear sir, don't worry about me. I will not leave this body due to hunger. Because pibato achut piyusham. Because I am drinking the nectar, or I am drinking the nectar about the Bhagwan Achyut, who is infallible, and that is flowing from your mouth. Yeah? Vakyo avdhi vinisritam. From the words from the ocean of your speech, it is flowing down. So I will not die. Don't worry about it. Okay. Now, when Kardam Rishi got darshan of their lordship, as we know before, Kardam Rishi was asked by Brahmaji that you go and perform some austerity. and the austerity was to be performed to actually get a wife. Yeah? But that was to produce or have children. Uh, but they were going to carry forward the progeny. That was the purpose, and he was directed by Brahmaji. So Kardam Rishi performed austerity for many years, and after seeing him performing those austerities, their lordship appeared. And they say their lordship first appeared, and as he was on the Garud, he saw Kardam Rishi performing that austerity. A tear a tear flew down, came down from the Lord's eyes by seeing his devotee performing that kind of austerity, and that tear fell into that lake, on the banks of that lake where Kardam is performing the austerity, and that's how that lake became Bindu Sarovar, because that tear fell into that lake. And then, as their lordship then spoke to Kardam Rishi opened his eyes, and then he started glorifying the Lord. He glorified the Lord, and then he's saying that Padam Bhujam Bhavasindhu Potam. My dear Lord, your feet are like a boat, Bhavasindhu Potam, yeah, to cross this ocean of material nations. Yeah, that's how your feet are. And then he further continues glorifying the Lord, and then he speaks one shloka. He says, Lokanscha lokanugatan pashumscha hitva shritaste charanat patram. Yeah? Parasparam tvad gunvadasidu piyush niryapita dehadha. So I was just trying to mention that word piyush. So how Parikshit Maharaj is saying, Pibato achyut piyushan, because I'm drinking. So here Kardam Rishi is speaking to the Lordship, and he says that, my dear Lord, yeah, Lokanscha lokanugatam pashamsha. Lokas is people, these conditioned people who are hankering for the material gains. Yeah, and lokans cha lokanugatam pashamsha, and their beastie followers who are also the material desires. People who are hankering for material desires, and their beastie followers who are also going through the same path. Yeah? And then he says, but my dear Lord, your devotees who have taken shelter, hitva, who have left this, shritaste charanat patram, your feet which are like an umbrella, yeah, who have come under the shelter of your feet which are like umbrella. And what are they doing? Parasparam tvad gunvadasi. Parasparam. They are conversing with each other. What about what? Tvad gunvad. Your qualities, your transcendental qualities. That's what Parikshit Maharaj asked. Yeah? Anucharitam. Yeah? Ascharya tamam hare. Please tell me his wonderful actions. Yeah? Anucharitam. I want to hear that. So that's what Kardam Rishi is saying. That, my dear Lord, we are conversing about it. And he's saying that that conversation is actually piyush. They are drinking that nectar. See, that's real nectar. So drinking that nectar. And by drinking that nectar, they are enlightening each other. Yeah? That's what, the pure devotees of the Lord do. And by doing that, my dear Lord, nirpiyush niryapita deha dharma. So they get liberated from all the body dharmas just by doing that. So same mood, Parikshit Maharaj is telling Shukdevji that, my dear sir, please continue speaking. Don't worry about me. I am not going to leave this body due to fasting. So if anyone is worried, I was just listening to Srila Prabhupada, and how Srila Prabhupada was, in one of the classes, Prabhupada was saying that how in olden days people used to perform so many austerities. In hot summers, they will go stand in the sun. In winters, strong winters, they will go stand in the water. Up to here, the water will be, and it was not too far back. It's only recently, lately, that we are not able to perform even the smallest austerity. Even on the day of Ekadashi, some people find it hard. Prabhupada was saying, just uh, avoid the grains. What is wrong? Yeah. That's what Bhagavan Rishabhdev tells his sons. Tapo divyam putraka yena sattvam shuddhayet yasmat brahma sakhyam tu anantam. Yeah. If you perform austerity, my dear sons, yena sattvam shuddhayet. By doing that, your heart will be cleansed. And then yasmat brahma sakhyam. Then you will get Brahma Sukh. You know how in the earlier, when we're speaking about that verse, Vanu Shayinam Sarge, people who are merged, they come again. So Prabhupada described there are two types of livings, ever liberated, ever conditioned. You want to be ever liberated. Yeah? Brahma Sakhyam tu Ananta. You get that happiness which is Anant, which is never ending. Yeah? So that is the mood. In that mood, Parikshit Maharaj is asking the questions. And he's asking the questions to get the Gyan, to get the Divya Gyan, not that speculative knowledge. This is the transcendental science. Yeah? Shreyan Dravyam Mayad Yagna Gyan Yagna Parantapa Sarvam Karma Akhilam Partha Gyane Parisamapyate Tad Vidhi Pranipatena Pariprashnena Sevaya Updekshayanti Taye Gyanam Gyani Nastatu Darshina. Yeah? Bhagavad Gita 4.33, 4.34. We often speak of Tad Vidhi Pranipatena Pariprashnena Seva. But if you read the previous verse, then you get better context of this. So Lord Krishna is telling Arjun that, my dear Arjun, Shreyan Dravyam Gyan, Dravyam Yagnat. Shreya Dravyamad Yagnat. If you are performing a sacrifice, you know how some people like to perform very opulent sacrifices, yagnas, inviting thousands of people. I mean, nothing wrong in that. Don't take it that way. But Lord Krishna is now putting things in perspective. Shreyan Dravyam Yagnat. The Shreya, the better than Dravya Yagna, is Jnana Yagna Parantapa. Yeah? O subduer of the enemies, Jnana Yagna is the sacrifice of Jnana Yagna is superior than Dravya Yagna. And then he says, Karma Sarvam Akhila. All the karmas, the karmas that we do action, what are we doing actions for? The karma is to have some knowledge, is to have some jnana. So Lord Krishna says, Jnane Parisamapyate. Yeah. Sarvam karma akhilam partha jnane parisamapyate. They end in the jnana. And jnana is not the material jnana. Prabhuji's Mata, it's Divya Gyan, the transcendental knowledge, the transcendental science about Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's what Brahmaji told Naradji. Idam Bhagavatam Nama. Yeah? Bhagavato Uditam. This Bhagavatam Nam Granth, which their Lordship spoke to me. Sangraho Ayam Vibhuti Nam. It is the sangrah, it is the accumulation. So that Gyan, that is the Divya Gyan. Everything else is useless. So Jnane Parisamapti. Now if you want that, then Krishna says, Tad Vidhi. Tad is to get that Gyan. Is to get that. Vidhi, to know that, basically. For that, Vidhi, to serve that purpose, basically, and to know that, Tad Vidhi Pranipatena. Go and surrender to a Guru. Pariprashnena, with a humble mood, like Parikshit Maharaj said to Shukdevji, in that humble mood. Bhagavatam says, if somebody is asking an intelligent question, then Vasudev Katha Prashna Purushans Trin Punatihi Vaktavya Prichakam, Vaktavya, Shrotrins. These three. Yatha Salilam. Yeah? How the Ganges is Salilam, how the Ganges is flowing from the lotus feet of the Lord, it purifies all the three planetary systems. Tad Pad Salilam Yatha. How the Ganges is flowing. Vaktaram Prichakam. The speaker, the person who is asked the question, and everyone else who is hearing the question and the answer. Vaktaram, Prichakam, Shrotrins. All these three. Purushans Trin Punatihi. Certainly, he is certainly. It purifies these three people. Tat Pada Salilam Yatha. How the Ganges coming down from the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead purifies all the three planetary systems. My dear sir, or my dear listeners, yeah. So Vasudev Katha Prashna, a question related to the Katha of Vasudev, Bhagavan Krishna. It purifies all three people. How Ganges flowing down from the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead purifies or cleans all the three planetary systems. Yeah, so that's what Krishna is saying, that Tad Vidhi Pranipatena Prashnena Sevaya. Ask the prashna, ask the question, sevaya, by serving that Guru. And if you serve him, updekshayanti te jnanam, then they will give you updesh. They will give you that knowledge. And that knowledge is divya knowledge. That knowledge is not about how to make money, how to make investment decisions. That knowledge is divya jnana. Because they are jnani and tattvadarshina. Because they have seen the tat. And that is the tat Parikshit Maharaj wants to know from Shukdev Goswami. So Hare Krishna Prabhuji Mataji, it is 32 past 8 o'clock. And please, so I think we'll have to stop here. Please excuse me and please pray for me that I keep serving you all and that I have more desire to study Srila Prabhupada's books, and I continue serving Srila Prabhupada, Guru Maharaj, and all the devotees. And finally, my special gratitude to Her Grace Mathura Gokul Devidasi Mataji, Nanda Gokul Prabhuji, for making arrangement for this system, because I'm able to do this, this session remotely. Thank you very much, Prabhuji, and His Grace Ghanshyam Govinda Prabhuji for starting this initiative, and everyone else at his council. Hare Krishna Prabhuji Mataji, Koti Dandat Pranam. Jai Jai Shri Radhe Shyam. Jai Shri Radha Gopinath Bhagwan Ki.